Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. So, today we're looking at something a little different, the book of Malachi.
Malachi.
Yeah. It's kind of tucked away at the end of the Old Testament.
Right.
And it's the last prophetic voice we hear for like, what, 400 years?
A long silence. Yeah, 4 centuries.
Wild. We're using the transcript from a Bible Stories video on YouTube, which I gotta say, this one really got me thinking.
I can imagine that silence, it makes Malachi's appearance so much more powerful.
Doesn't it? Like, put yourself in the shoes of an Israelite back then.
Okay, so generations have passed without a direct word from God.
And then, boom.
Malachi shows up.
Talk about an entrance, right?
Right.
It definitely sets the stage for something big. So let's set the scene ourselves.
All right.
We're talking about Jerusalem around 430 BC. The Israelites are back from exile. The temple's rebuilt. But it's not all, happily ever after, is it?
No, not exactly. There's this sense of, I guess you could say, spiritual fatigue.
Oh, interesting.
Like they've lost that initial excitement of returning home.
Oh, I get that. It's like when that honeymoon phase ends, but instead of with a person, it's with their faith.
That is a great way to put it.
So how does Malachi tackle this, what did you call it, spiritual fatigue?
Yeah. Well, first there's something unique about Malachi himself.
Yeah.
His name. It literally means my messenger.
Hmm.
And we don't know anything about his personal life. No background, no family, nothing.
Huh. You're right. Usually with the prophets, we get some backstory, struggles, But Malachi's almost like a ghost.
It's true.
Why do you think that is?
It's like God saying, focus on the message, not the messenger. Kind of a contrast to today's world where we're so focused on the influencer rather than the substance.
Ooh, I like that. Malachi flips the script, forces you to pay attention to the words themselves. Okay, so let's get into this message. Malachi comes out strong, right off the bat, affirming God's love for Israel. Right, even though the people are doubting it, they straight up ask, how have you loved us?
Which, that right there shows how deep this apathy runs.
Exactly. They can't even recognize God's love in their lives.
And then Malachi doesn't hold back. He lays out all the ways they've fallen short.
It's like a spiritual checkup, and the results are not good.
He calls them out for offering blemished sacrifices, for all the divorces happening, for neglecting their tithes. It's a pretty harsh wake-up call.
It is, but it's not just about following the rules. It's about their lack of genuine devotion.
Like they're giving God the bare minimum.
They're leftovers, basically.
Wow. So it's less about the actions and more about the heart behind them.
Exactly. Malachi's calling them back to a place of authentic worship.
Okay, that makes sense. And that's something we can all relate to, right? It's easy to fall into routines, to lose that sense of awe and wonder.
For sure.
But you mentioned something earlier about Malachi not just focusing on judgment, he also offers hope, right?
Oh, absolutely. And this is where things get even more interesting because it ties directly into the New Testament. Malachi prophesies about a messenger coming to prepare the way for the Lord.
Wait, are we talking about John the Baptist here?
You got it.
Whoa. Hundreds of years before John is even born, Malachi is already pointing towards Jesus.
It's like he's bridging the gap between the Old and New Testaments.
I have to admit, that gives me chills. A mysterious prophet with a message of judgment and hope, all pointing to the coming of the Messiah. That's powerful.
It is.
So this is much more than just an ancient text. It's a message that speaks to us today, to our own struggles with faith and commitment. So let's dive into the specifics of Malachi's message next.
Sounds good. I'm curious to explore how his words can help us navigate faith in the 21st century. So let's get into some of those specific areas where the Israelites were, messing up.
All right, let's do it.
We were talking about those blemished sacrifices, remember?
Oh, yeah.
But it's worth really picturing what that looked like, in everyday life.
Okay, paint me a picture. What did this spiritual laziness actually look like?
Okay, imagine it's time for the temple sacrifices.
It's a big deal, right?
Huge. Central to their whole worship system. But instead of bringing their best animals as offerings, they're bringing the ones with defects.
What, like the rejects?
Basically. The blind, the lame, the sick ones.
Ouch, that's kind of harsh. Like, they're saying God won't mind, he'll take what he can get.
Yeah, exactly. And this attitude, it kind of spills over into other areas of their lives too, like marriage, for instance. They're treating it like some disposable contract. Malachi condemns the rampant divorce, especially when husbands are ditching their wives for younger women.
Wow, that's, yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound too different from some of what we see today, does it?
Sadly, no.
Like commitment's lost its value. Makes you wonder, what did covenant even mean to them if it was so easily broken?
Right. You see, back then, marriage wasn't just some social agreement. It was a sacred covenant, a reflection of God's own commitment to his people. So by treating it so casually, they were undermining something much deeper, something that went to the heart of their relationship with God.
Okay, I'm starting to see how it all ties together.
Yeah.
So we've got hypocrisy in worship, broken promises in relationships.
Yeah.
Wasn't there also something about tithing?
Yes. They were essentially robbing God by holding back on their tithes.
Not just about money, though, right?
Right. It speaks to a lack of trust, a lack of gratitude. They weren't supporting the temple, the Levites. The whole structure of their faith was at stake.
It's like they completely forgot that everything they had came from God.
Exactly.
This all sounds like a recipe for, like, spiritual burnout or maybe even spiritual bankruptcy.
Ooh, I like that. Spiritual bankruptcy.
Right. But you said earlier, Malachi's not all doom and gloom.
Oh, absolutely not.
There's hope mixed in here, right?
Definitely. Malachi reminds them, point blank, about God's enduring love. He says, I have loved you with an everlasting love.
It's that amazing grace we hear about.
Is it?
Even when we're at our worst, God's love is still there. Powerful stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
And Malachi doesn't stop there. He offers them a way back, a path to restoration. He says, return to me and I will return to you.
So it's not a one-way street.
No.
God's ready to meet them halfway. They just have to take the first step.
Exactly.
What does this return look like? What happens when they take that step?
Well, Malachi paints this beautiful picture of spiritual renewal.
Oh, okay.
He talks about the floodgates of heaven opening, blessings pouring out. So much blessing, there's not enough room to contain it.
Wow. Now that's a promise worth chasing.
Right.
But it's not just about, like, material wealth, is it?
No. It's a deeper kind of abundance, that joy, peace, purpose that comes from being aligned with God.
I see. Like rediscovering that close relationship with God they'd lost sight of.
Exactly. And this ties back to that prophecy about the messenger preparing the way.
Oh, yeah, right.
Malachi describes this messenger who will purify the sons of Levi, refining them like precious metals. He'll get everything ready for the Lord's arrival.
And we know this messenger is John the Baptist, right?
Yep. The one who comes before Jesus, announcing the Messiah's arrival.
Wow, this is mind-blowing. Malachi, this seemingly obscure prophet, is pointing directly to the coming of Jesus. It's like we're getting a sneak peek at God's plan for humanity.
I know, right?
Malachi is not just pointing out their flaws. He's offering a solution, a way back to God. And ultimately, he's pointing us toward Jesus. It's becoming clear why he's such a crucial figure.
He bridges the gap between the old and the new. He sets the stage for this whole story of redemption that unfolds in the New Testament.
Amazing. But his impact goes even further than that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. His words continue to echo through the ages, offering guidance, challenging us on our own faith journeys.
Okay, I need a minute to process all this. So how does this ancient message connect with our lives today? What can we, as 21st century believers, learn from Malachi? I think I'm ready for the final part of our deep dive.
Let's do it. We'll explore Malachi's lasting legacy. We'll unpack the ways his message still challenges and inspires us even after thousands of years.
Okay, I'm still reeling from that connection between Malachi and John the Baptist. It's like, wow, talk about foreshadowing. But you are saying that his impact goes even deeper.
Oh yeah, Malachi's words are surprisingly relevant to us, even today. Like, take his call for sincere worship. It's so easy to go through the motions, you know?
Totally. Life gets busy, and we can end up just checking off the boxes on that spiritual to-do list without really connecting.
Right. And Malachi reminds us that God wants more than just empty rituals. He wants our hearts.
Yeah, our full attention, not just the leftovers.
Exactly. He wants our best, not our second best.
It's like a gut check, isn't it? Asking yourself, am I really present when I'm worshiping, or am I just, I don't know, phoning it in?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And then there's this focus on marriage.
Mm-hmm.
In a culture where divorce is so common, Malachi reminds us that marriage is meant to be a sacred covenant.
Right. Like a reflection of God's love for us.
Exactly. It's not something to be broken easily. It's a commitment for life.
It's so easy to get caught up in that me-first mentality, though, isn't it?
It is.
We forget that real love means sacrifice, commitment, putting your partner's needs before your own.
It's true. Malachi calls us to a higher standard, one that reflects the kind of love Christ has for the church. And his criticism of those corrupt priests, that's relevant today, too.
Really? I thought that was just about, like, religious leaders back then.
It goes beyond that. It speaks to anyone in a position of leadership, really, whether it's at church work, or even in our families.
So it applies to all of us in some way.
In a way, yes. Malachi is calling us to lead with integrity, to serve others humbly, and to put the needs of those we lead first. Always.
It's a good reminder that true leadership isn't about power, but about making a positive impact on the world.
Exactly. And then there's his message about tithing and generosity.
Right, right.
In a world obsessed with material wealth, he challenges us to give back to God to support his work.
To be thankful for what we have.
Yes, and to remember that everything we have is a gift from God. And you know what? True fulfillment comes from using those gifts to help others.
It's about shifting our focus from what can I get to what can I give.
Exactly. And finally, there's that amazing prophecy about Elijah coming back, which was fulfilled in John the Baptist. It reminds us to be ready,
Oh, yeah, right.
to live with purpose, waiting for Christ's return, to make the most of every opportunity to show God's love and make a difference.
Wow, this has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone through the history, the theology, and even how Malachi's message applies to our lives today. I have a whole new understanding of this book.
I know, right? It's amazing how these ancient texts can still be so relevant.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, any final thoughts, anything you want to leave our listeners with?
If Malachi, the seemingly ordinary man, could be used by God to deliver such a powerful message, imagine what God could do through us.
That's a powerful thought.
We may not be prophets in the traditional sense, but we can all be messengers of God's love in our own way.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we go about our week, maybe we should ask ourselves, how can I be a Malachi in my own life? How can I bring more sincerity to my worship, more integrity to my relationships, and more generosity to the world around me?
That's a great challenge.
It is. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Malachi. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving.